And over the last 24 hours, if not the last 20 hours, we've had a lot of heated debate. And it's following that arranged press conference announcing the staff level agreement that was agreed between the government of Ghana, led by the finance ministry, led by Ken Ofori-Atta, with the IMF, and subsequently leading to a lot of resurgence and confidence in the market. And it's well captured on the front page, for example, on the Daily Graphic, as well as the Business and Financial Times, IMF to inject $3 billion, etc. It also means that a lot of goodwill on the market. It is also instructive for me to echo the words of the Information Minister, Kujopon Nkrumah, saying that the media, the generality of the Ghanaian public also need to come on board, including organized labor. We'll touch on some of these issues and what all the key stakeholders need to do to make sure that we have a bounce back of the Ghanaian economy. We have right here in the studio a former member of Parliament for Tema East, a former Deputy Minister for Transport, Titus Glover, and Daniel Ni Kwate Titus Glover is a permanent resident on the show. Thank you for passing through.
Good morning, my brother Roland. How
Great.
are you doing?
Great. And then also former journalist, or still a journalist, current member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhuyini is right here. Good morning to Alhassan.
Good morning, Roland.
Yeah, great.
You're looking great. I love your
Thank you. It's just for the show. You know, the whole thing is like can dramas. You have to dress for the audience. the pocket no good.
Oh, you too?
But you know how it is.
You too?
Oh.
Oh.
You know, we had some investment in EDC and a couple of my friends. So when we went, the haircut was huge.
Well,
Honorable knows that.
Well, we are in the same soup then.
Yeah. Because they encourage us that we'll invest in financial instruments now.
And that it's
so we're first on.
The returns are guaranteed.
No.
It's not been pleasant.
Now let's take an insert from Stefan Redo. He led the International Monetary Fund as a mission chief, and they convened that press conference between the government of Ghana led by Ken Ofori-Atta. So let's get that insert for Stefan Redo, and he spoke well. So if that insert is ready, we'll play the white man insert.
What is necessary for us to be able to present that program request to the board is assurances from Ghana's partners and Ghana's creditors that one, the program is fully financed. In other words, the financial support that will be provided to the authorities during the program period is sufficient to finance the program. And two, that the program taken together, the fiscal consolidation path, the comprehensive debt restructuring that the authorities have launched will be sufficient to reestablish debt sustainability. And so as soon as we have assurances from creditors that this will be the case, when sufficient progress has been made on that front, we will be able to present the program to our board.
What is important is not a staff level agreement, but a management and board approval of Ghana's application by the IMF board, which probably may take us to April or even beyond. And therefore, staff level agreement, I see them dancing and celebrating to it premature. Our debt is still not sustainable. The debt exchange initiative of the minister may probably fail, as many are refusing to sign on to it. The content of the external bonds are still unknown. They are running out of time to announce the haircut associated with the external bonds. So for the Minister for Finance to be dancing and say that praise me because I have brought an improvement in the exchange rate of the cedi, which was falling with some epileptics, praise me, he should ask himself, at what level did he inherit the cedi against the dollar. It was 4.2 cedis to a dollar. At 12.5, there is nothing to celebrate and nothing to honor him from. What he has done in the last 3 months, he's collapsed businesses, if not persons. And the excruciating and unacceptable hardships in the country is not likely to end.
Any quarter titles, Global. What do you make of the euphoric responses on the part of government and, of course, the market, then also what the reactions have been, whether we should be excited with some level of caution?
Good morning, Roland, and good morning to your viewers, and good morning to my brother.
Good morning.
It's been a while. It's a good news, but with some caution, like you said. The IMF have done what they are supposed to do. They are presenting their report to the board for consideration and approval based on the findings that they've had from Ghana. The necessity, the exigency for this IMF has come as a result of the challenges we're facing in the economy. As we speak now, we all know that servicing of our debts has been a major challenge for us. 70% of domestic revenues that are generated are used in servicing debts. There are also public sector employment wages need to be factored in. Therefore, what is left for capital expenditure and goods and services is about 12-15% that government can play around. That is why this debt arrangement is being proposed by the finance minister to sit and to make sure what can we do so we'll be able to take ourselves out of the woes that we find ourselves. Indeed, over the past few days, the city has started gaining some strength. Yesterday, I was on one of the radio stations in FM that the dollar has dwindled as much as to about $9, $10, 10 cedis to a dollar, which is responding to the market. But clearly, we need to look at this development carefully. Why do I say this? There are certain factors that we do as a nation, as a people, that when we begin to change our habits, I am sure we'll be able to maintain the development in terms of the market forces on the cedi and the dollar, because the demand on the dollar hitherto was so high. The few dollars is being chased by the cedi, and people who naturally don't need the dollar to transact business decided to go and buy these dollars and hold them. Some were even speculating. Tomorrow the dollar is going, the cedi is depreciating, the like, and all kinds of things. The people rush to get these dollars down and make sure they make some good profit out of it. As I speak to you now, those who bought those dollars are now struggling to even sell them out because the cedi is regaining its strength again. Now they are going to the forex bureaus to make sure they can change into cedis and all that. By and large, recently the Bank of Ghana also said that there are certain products that they will not support forex into their importation into the country. i.e., they talk about poultry products, they talk about edible cooking oil, toothpick, fruit juice, rice, tiles, and all that. I remember when I was the chairman for the Committee of Trade, Industry, and Tourism in the 7th Parliament. Nigeria banned 45 different types of items not to be imported into their country. You know why? Because they want their local industries to be strengthened. Because Nigeria is a big market. So when they import all these things into the system, into their country, it weakens the production of the local ones that they have in Nigeria, to the extent that they even legislated their central bank not to support these people with any forex. So as we speak now, Nigeria is compelled all these 45 products to be produced in Nigeria and to make sure they can strengthen the naira to let them grow.
But that's deliberate by way of
It's
policy.
a deliberate way of trying to make the import substitution policy of Nigeria so strong. And that is why President Akufo-Addo's policy on one district, one factory is also very important over here. Out of the over 200 that we have, the policy initiative, a little over 102 is in full operation now. The food industries, the tile industry, and few of them.
And we had this, but we had to go to IMF.
But what I'm saying is that maybe we are not
I'm trying
feeling
to
the
get
full
where you're
impact.
going with the one district, one factory policy
That
initiative.
is an angle of trying to drive the policy of import substitution. Because when we begin to consume whatever we produce here, it's a way of trying to conserve this foreign exchange that we use importing these finished products from other countries. By so doing, you are only developing the economies for them. You are creating jobs for them in the economy. So clearly, we need to look at this angle again. And I believe that it is a way that we can strengthen our city against the dollar. I've sent you a video.
Yeah, sure.
The former Nigerian president,
Obasanjo.
He was making a speech. At the time when he was the president of Nigeria, he's a farmer by profession. When he was the head of state and a soldier, he banned the importation of poultry products. And former president, his colleague President Kufuor, asked him how he did it. He wanted to do similar thing here. You heard what Obasanjo said. The IMF and the World Bank told President Kufuor not to go ahead and do it.
Let me play that video. That video is ready. Just let's take a listen to former president of Nigeria, General Olusegun Obasanjo.
The case of poultry in Ghana. When I was president of Nigeria, I decided the only way to encourage poultry, because I know I have been in poultry business as a farmer for more than 20 years. The gestation period is maximum 2 years. So I thought that this one thing that we can be self-sufficient in. And I said, we will ban importation of poultry. We did. My brother here, John Kufuor, came to me and said, what did you do? I told him. I believe he instigated a bill which was passed by the legislature of this country to ban importation of poultry. Quick came reactions from the World Bank and IMF. That law cannot be implemented. I don't know whether the law is still on the statute book of your country, but it was not implemented by President John Kufuor. Because if he had attempted to implement it, IMF and World Bank will have cut off support. How can you blame John Kufuor? Then, if I may take example of Ghana, which is not far from the example of many other countries in.
But it means that policy initiatives of import substitution, trade barriers, of course you have difficulties with the World Trade Organization, even though some of the big countries may not necessarily belong to, but tend to guide to the policies of emerging markets. It has to be deliberate. Because the Arabic countries, they do it. The Asian countries, they do it. You cannot tell me that we know what is good on paper because of IMF, World Bank, even though we know the threats that they pose.
When I heard this video, I was sad. Because this is...
And this video had been there, and Ken Ofori-Atta decided
direction.
not to implement.
We are not talking about Ken Ofori-Atta here. Please, don't start your mischief.
No, it's not,
Don't
it's
go
not fair.
there.
No,
Don't go
I'm
there.
not going there. I'm
Don't go
asking
there.
serious questions
We want
about
to
the finance
see
minister.
how we can develop
would
this
have to
economy,
spearhead some of these
how
things.
we can make our currency stronger. And this is a deliberate policy that if we are able to drive it, can save this country. And for me, when I saw this video, I said, wow.
What you're saying is not new. That's
You
all I'm
understand?
saying.
So clearly you need a deliberate attempt to make sure we push these things through. And that will save this country. Average incomes, 50% of average incomes goes into food, consumption in your home. So clearly we need to look at this business of this, how we can make this import substitution agenda. And for me, I'm happy with this 1D, 1F. Maybe slowly we are not seeing it, but with time, we can begin
How
to have the
long
full
have we
impact.
implemented 1D, 1F?
It's ongoing, it's a
No,
continuous
no, no.
thing.
When did we start it?
We came to power in 2017, and building factories takes a little time because government gives a lot of support in terms of credit lines and all that to make sure they are able to develop before they come into mainstream production and all that. So clearly, it's a matter of time that it will take. But back to this.
No, don't run away. Please, relax. I'm saying that the 1D, 1F, when did we start it? And then if you look at the items, the 43 items that are linked to the benchmark values and the concerns that have been raised, which one would you say there's a product from a one district, one factory initiative for which we've had overwhelming takeover of the market from that factory of that product?
Sitting here will be very difficult for me to make that
Because it's not
assessment.
there.
Because the Ministry of Trade and Industry, this falls directly on their table. So they can give us the numbers, the statistics as to this 1D, 1F, how the impact is being felt. You are a journalist too. You can also find out.
Because I don't feel.
Yeah, that's why, because sometimes you don't want to find out. So indeed, you can pick your cameras and go to some of these 1D, 1F factories.
We
to
always
find.
go
It's
there.
important.
They are not there.
Who told you it's not there?
Which product, sir?
Is a Goofy not working? Is a Goofy not working?
Granted, they all work, and we know that they
So,
work.
so that is why me sitting here in Equator Titus Global, I don't have the opportunity. You have your cameras. You can.
We
one
go
of these
there.
days,
We go
you
there.
have not gone there, so
No,
don't say
we
you
go.
go there.
Oh,
Where have you been
please.
to?
No, we've
Where
been
have
to
you
many
so
of
find
these outlets,
Find out
and
whatever it's
and
happening.
they have
When
not,
you go to the north, my brother's
not,
place,
they are not even
you
competing.
You go to this Mampushi area, Nasia. They have rice
They are
mill
not
factory
even
there.
competing. They've not
You
even
know,
taken over
you
the
go
market.
to Savlugu, they have
So
rice
that's
mill
the
factory
concern,
there.
sir.
They are there. Go and find out. Then you
No.
Why
You
is it
see-
that sometimes when I'm saying these things, you
No.
try to falter me?
No. The reality is that we have the policies on paper, but the outcomes of these policies have not influenced the market.
On the contrary.
Unless you want to say
On the
that
contrary,
what
I'm
we are saying is
that
not true.
It is very slow. It is very slow.
It takes 6 years.
I'm
5
not saying
years.
6 years. It's very slow. But sometimes our propensity for consumption of exotic product is also a problem for Ghanaians. We have our own thing being produced here, and we decide to go and taste foreign product. It's a way of killing that initiative. Look at what President Obasanjo is telling us. If we're able to do this, some World Bank and IMF people are sitting there telling us that, look, they will not allow us to do it. In our own people. Look, in my home today, I've passed, what do you call it, an instructions. No consumption of any foreign rice. Let us all begin to eat locally made rice. When you are coming from Anyanu towards the Bala Junction, there's a rice mill on your left. They sell on the roadside.
Near the naval base area.
Yes. My own brother, Komraminta Kando, I was with him on one of the TV discussions on Adum TV. He gave me
A
one
sample
of his rice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Senor Hosi also has a great
Fantastic.
initiative in there.
So when we begin to entertain the consumption of our own produce, you think this country will not grow?
It will grow. The thing is for us to be deliberate about the policy. Look, for us to go to the IMF, I was just going through a document from the IMF post-COVID, and they talk about the emerging markets. Even by 2021, even the beginning of this year.
1 minute before my brother comes in, the coming in of AFTA, where African countries can trade among ourselves, is a good platform for us. Yes.
It's also a good initiative,
Yes, it's a
which
good
we need to.
initiative.
The thing is that we need to take advantage
Absolutely.
of. Going to the IMF, there had been a lot of suggestions from academia, the other side of the political divide. The former president and a number of industry players have suggested that even before by May, when the finance minister said we were never going to go to the IMF, if we had taken some of those initiatives, we wouldn't have found ourselves where we are. And some of these are always espoused by Titus Glover.
Well, Roland, to some extent, I agree with you. I think that the problems in this country and the solutions to them are quite well known by almost everyone who cares about finding solutions to the problems that we are faced with. They are quite well known. The difference, however, I have noticed is that you have those who will prescribe solutions that seem laudable for political expediency, and then those who actually may not even sloganeer the policies or the solutions, but will do the hard work of ensuring that what has to be done has to be done. So you'd hear people talk of changing the structure of our economy because it's a Goggisberg economy. They need to change it from the Goggisberg economy to a first world economy. And that's what has to be done. But unfortunately, the people who say that are given the opportunity, and you realize that they had no clue as to how to do that. They just thought that it sounded nice and it should be said. The same as 1D, 1F, and I agree with my brother Titus, that its importance cannot be underestimated. The need for us to ensure that we look at districts and their competitive advantage and support those districts to compete strongly, either in production or in processing of the things that they have advantage over. It cannot be underestimated. But you see, it is said, it is sloganeered, and get the opportunity, and you realize that it is just said because it is nice. It is just said because it is the solution. But it is not said because there is a clear understanding as to how to actually implement it
I think what he's saying is how do we get there?
To maximize, the opportunities that you may have in there. I mean, I recall, for example, I think the 2015 State of the Nation address of His Excellency President Mahama when he was then in office, where he outlined a number of these imports that, we had competitive advantage over, but we're not taken advantage of. And because of that, it was impacting our city so much. I recall he talked about rice, tomatoes, sugar, and some other commodities such as frozen food. And it was in that 2015 State of the Nation address that after outlining these things and attributing the fall of the city to those things, the Commander Sugar Factory, for example, was announced as a project to be undertaken to ensure that we improved our, import substitution, at least in the area of sugar. What happened? I mean, we politicked with it. The project was actually finished. Backward integration, forward integration as to which one was best. We wasted time on the minors and forgot of the major issues. And today the factory is wasting after we have invested huge sums of money into it. It is even a pale shadow of itself today, and we have not taken advantage of it to improve our competitive advantage when it comes to, substituting production of sugar in this country with importation. And because of that, our city is still suffering, and sugar importation has gone up. It was in that State of the Nation address again that I remember that the policy on frozen foods, especially poultry, was announced. I mean, those in the poultry industry will bear witness to what I'm talking about, where the government policy at the time was to ensure that importers source about 40% of their products locally before they were granted permission to import the rest of the 60%. It gave poultry producers even some, income, because importers had to, in some cases, advance monies to the poultry growers so that they could guarantee that they will get the 40% from the local market. And in the implementation of this policy, I want to single out Dr. Hanabisu for commendation. She just won our, women organizer position recently, because I know I was close enough to know the battles that she fought with missions, in this country that were against that policy. So yes, Sanjo is right. I mean, when he talked about the law that was passed by President Kufuor through Osafo Mafo as finance minister, but could not be implemented on poultry. When the NDC announced that, strategy of sourcing poultry, 40% of poultry local, and then getting permission to bring in 60% through the Ministry of Agric, it was not a walk in the park. The ministers at the time had it tough with the missions that are stationed in this country. The embassies, foreign embassies, did not, find it pleasant. Today, we've gone back to square one. So yes, we all seem to know what has to be done, but it takes leadership. It takes vision. It takes, constructive, approach to things, and not just political sloganeering, and not just whimsical, political expedient actions, like we see in the case of one district, one factory, where you don't even know what the policy framework really is. Because it started as a promise to establish these factories, transformed into support to private sector, and now basically just seen as tax waivers and
even supporting existing factories through those tax waivers.
It is because it is not well thought through. It is just said because it sounds palatable and it is political. But Roland, let's drill it down to how this discussion started with the IMF and the fact that our current managers of the economy have completely run down our economy to a point that we have never been before, at least in the Fourth Republic. We've never been here, where our debts are unsustainable, where debt to GDP is over 100%, where inflation rate is over 40%, and the exchange rate is untamed,
and
as
the credit
it is today.
ratings
And the credit ratings, we have never been here.
Yeah.
We've never been here, at least in the Fourth Republic. We've never been here. And these managers of our economy, with their cluelessness and their insensitivity, and worst of all, their intransigence and arrogance, have led us to this situation where we have had to approach the IMF for policy credibility.
Will you call that a bounce back? At least that's good.
I am saying that they have led us to this point where we have had to engage the IMF for policy credibility, because nobody wants to touch us with even a long pole anymore. And so we need that partnership with the IMF for this credibility. And then you have, the people who even at first told us that that was not the solution. Remember, we kept telling them, go now or go in an ambulance. They waited 1 year late. They have now gone there. They have started the talk. And we have the staff level agreement. But Roland, my worry is, listen to them. I know we have to wrap up, but listen to them. And I get worried that the mindset hasn't changed. The same mindset with which they brought us into this trouble, this problem that we find ourselves in, is the same mindset that they are still working with. You have John Kuma, who stood on the floor of Parliament telling us we'll never go to the IMF. Today tell us that, we are the IMF, shame on you. Those who say we can't get a deal, shame on you. He is not ashamed that he's told this country that we won't go to IMF. Those who said that go early or when you finally go, it will be difficult to get a deal, should be ashamed. What level of thinking is that? You have the finance minister who tells you that, this is an unprecedented time frame that we have achieved. And so you should get glory. After running our economy down, to this level, you should be humble. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be showing some remorse, because you see, you have even reached where you are because the people of Ghana are more tolerant of you than they are of other political parties. Trust me, with all the haircuts we are getting, can you for 1 second just imagine that President Mahama was in office and you went to your bank and you were going to get
The criticism would have been huge, of course.
Can you
Because I remember
imagine?
the way we
Can you
criticized them.
imagine the kind of cooperation the NDC minority has given for even the budget policy to be passed? Because we all see that the country is at risk if we do not get this deal. Can you imagine what the attitude of the NPP would have been if they were in our shoes today?
Okay. But
So let them show that same level of magnanimity that the whole nation is showing. Even though we know that they are responsible for this mess that they have put us in.
yesterday at that press conference, and there were questions also asked related to that the prior consultations had not been exhausted. Over the period, we've had labor, which has billions. Because if you take the quantum of bonds and monies domestically in excess of some 132 billion, that the consultations would have to be undertaken before we get to the board. How do you advise, having occupied the position within which you've done before you came into mainstream politics of labor, you know the contributions of workers, that these sort of engagement need to be undertaken? Because there's a point about realizing that you did something wrong. You're also a causative factor in this to get the buy-in of everybody.
Roland, it's a very difficult situation in which we find ourselves in. And as I listen to my brother and the fact that we are not exhibiting some remorselessness and for that matter, magnanimity, and because somebody has said some comments, and for that matter, he is not happy about it. Where we have reached now, I want to appeal to the minority that don't look at words that somebody has said, because whether we like it or not, we are where we are. Admittedly, there are a few, some challenge here and there, but we're looking at the way forward. What do we do to get ourselves out of this situation in which we find? And let me commend the minority for the support on the budget, because if they don't approve this budget for us, where do we go? This country must run, and they, the minority, they are a party to the development of this country. So I will appeal to Sohini and my colleagues in the minority to take it easy and see what we can do together to get ourselves out of these woods. Now to the substantive question that you asked me in terms of the consultations. The past few weeks that we've been here, we've been talking about these negotiations and this consultation. You recall that the Minister of Finance has engaged fund managers, they've engaged the National Pension and Regulatory Authority, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Association of Bankers, Association of Insurance. But the real people whose monies are being managed by the institutions of state have not been met. And that led to the signal of these trade unions issuing threats here and there. The first person to touch this statement was my brother Bampu, the General Secretary of CLOSAC. Then the substantive other union leaders, Ghana Registered Association, Nurse Association, then came about the Nagrats, my brother Kabunu,
Thomas Musa.
You see, from my background, in negotiations, we don't flex muscles. The social partners, when you come to table with some level of transparency.
Magnanimity.
Do you understand? As you are coming to negotiate, if you don't have, it's a matter of the way you go around it. And you must give that respect to the unions. No union leader wants him to be walked off. No union leader wants his face to be dragged into the mud. If you don't have, there is a way that you communicate around the table. And knowing my background and where I'm coming from, unions are not destructive entities.
And we could have prevented that.
Do you understand? Unions are not destructive people. They are human beings. They have feelings that they will understand the situation we find ourselves. So I've said it. I hear the engagement I've started. Positive. Bingo. They should continue. But when we go in the negotiations, let us calm down. Let us explain ourselves in a way that the unions can understand the situation we find ourselves. Of course, those in the higher wage bracket, their pensions are higher than those in the lower bracket, and they are going to suffer the most. But whatever it is, this is the situation in which we find ourselves. So for me, the consultation is still ongoing. The negotiation is ongoing. I want to appeal to my brothers, the unions. They should not be too entrenched. I'm appealing to them. Yesterday I'm a fan of Alfred Ghana Tonight, and my lecturer, Honorable Austin Gami. You know, he's a labor consultant.
Yes.
And he appealed to our
Deputy
people.
Minister,
of course, he appealed to them. So whatever the situation that we find ourselves, there's a need for us to look at the larger interests of this country, what we can do.
I said no because constantly the finance minister had been told you needed to do these actions, and the posture was just wrong. And if you listen to the unions, the posture is still wrong. I'll bring somebody who is a secretary to UTAG UG, and he's no mean person than Professor Ransford Jampo. Okay.
Firebrand.
And you listen to him, he said, we'll bring his first post, the KOA1, and then we'll bring the second post as well. So if you have the two of them, you find.
What is KOA1?
KOA. So you take a look at somebody who is in the middle of these negotiations, somebody who is a political scientist by profession. He's a governance expert. He has gone into labor speaking like this. He's not an ignorant person. He knows the dynamics of governance, the way the postures of the political elite. And that's what he says. He says, "Dear Ken Ofori-Atta, yes, a destabilized macroeconomy is an enemy to pension." And this was yesterday when that press conference was going on. But we won't allow you to forcibly take our pension while yours is secured elsewhere. Your soft tone can only deceive Parliament Censure Committee, not Labour. We'll bring you his second post as well, because he made a couple of posts. Now, you take a look at the next one, and then it gives you the feeling within organized labor. These are not just normal junior staff. No. Intellectuals, knowledgeable people. He said it is politically demonic to use a soft voice to attempt to plunder the little investment and pension of labor. We can't allow you to sacrifice the future of those whose toil pays for your current comfort. We suffer to gain. We don't suffer to suffer. I know you take a look at this and you cannot say that somebody like him or all others within that rank of labor don't know what they are saying. They are not reading the posture coming from Ken Ofori. They're clearly saying that you're just not good at it. Even within the period when you're negotiating with the International Monetary Fund, that you're just getting it wrong.
I can see the role Ransford is speaking out of pain. He's speaking out of the fact that how we expect the finance ministry to be engaging more is not what he's seeing. So yes, he's entitled to what he has written. But I think that let's take some of the advice that he wants to share with us. But whatever it is, now that the first phase is done, they are waiting the approval from the board. The consultations and engagement need to continue. That is why I've enumerated here. There is a need for us to sit with the unions because they hold a chunk of these monies. 8 billion, the total, they have 60 different types of bonds from the information I gathered. Out of this, 8 billion is coming from individuals, individual investments. But the rest of the money are in the hands of these fund managers. That is coming from the union members. So I think that I will appeal to my union friends that when the finance ministry comes and they open up the books and the discussion, there's not all that entrenched. So that all of us we can be able to.
What do you make of somebody like that?
Well, I maybe before I speak to that one, let me just draw Titus' attention to Titus Glover's attention to, the talk about individual bonds being about 8 billion and all of that. You see, you speak to a lot of people. You and I, we are individuals, right? We invested with EDC.
Yeah, but we're not institutional investors, but individuals. Yes, true.
But we invested with EDC. And EDC bought the bonds. So are we going to be treated as individuals, or we are going to be treated as institutions? Because most individuals in this country don't walk in to buy these bonds. They buy through these fund managers. Do you understand? So, well, that's a conversation for another day. But when you look at the frustration, I call it frustration, not anger. Frustration that is poured out by Professor Jampo. It reflects the pent-up feelings of many Ghanaians. But despite that frustration that we all feel, we still think that certain sacrifices have to be made or endured by us, despite our frustrations, so that we can still have an economy tomorrow. And so in that willingness to endure, despite our frustrations, the lists that the people who have plunged us into this, who are not as frustrated as we are, because I am sure, like he says, they enjoy comfort from us and have their pensions coming from somewhere. The least that they can do is to at least be remorseful. Because, Roland, first of all, when they were told to go to the IMF, it was this same arrogance. In fact, before even the IMF, when they were told to stop doing some things, like the benchmark values that they are now reintroducing, they didn't listen. Like the e-levy that they were told will not work, for which they are now reducing it to 1%. They didn't listen. When they were populating all institutions with full soldiers and party apparatchiks, doubling the staff size of institutions, and they were told that it was a danger, they didn't listen. Today they have to freeze jobs. They didn't listen. When they were misreporting the figures, hiding the, banking, cleaning, or collapsing figures, and not reporting it correctly, so we know the true situation of our debt, they didn't listen. Now that they have been forced by the IMF to report accurately, our debt to GDP has gone over 100%. If they had reported correctly earlier when they were told to do so, we would have applied the brakes long ago. Because you see, when you are going at 150 kilometers per hour, and you tell yourself you are going at 100 kilometers per hour, you think you are still safe.
You still think we're still on that roller coaster? I mean, those managing the economy.
That's what I'm saying. They still don't realize. You see, it is time for them to realize that they have ignored good advice in the past. And these pieces of advice that they have ignored in the past.
Are you sure? Yesterday he was quoting, is it Joseph and Nehemiah? So, I mean, it's a realization that, I mean, we need...
It's the same way he's quoted us into the ditch that we are in. And that is why, I mean,
Joseph
for those who have never watched Piccadilly City, it's a Nigerian movie, an old Nigerian movie. Those who have never watched Piccadilly City, they should find it and watch, and they'll understand what Isaac Adongo meant when he described this finance
But that's a realization
as,
that
Piccadilly.
we need divine intervention.
You will find that movie and watch. You will understand. In fact, the man actually advised the son when he went to tell him that he has finally decided to be an armed robber.
So you don't believe in all these quotes?
That every morning when you wake up, play gospel and make sure the volume is loud enough for your neighbors to hear. So anytime you are caught stealing, your neighbors will say, no, you are such a good Christian that you cannot steal. It's a movie, and it's in that movie. And that always speaks softly to people, especially in your community. Nice and soft to them. And that way, anytime you are caught somewhere, your neighbors will rise to your defense. That you are such a soft-spoken, Bible quoting, gospel singing, playing gentleman that you cannot steal. It's in the movie. And I'm saying that if you watch that movie, you understand what Isaac Adongo meant better when he spoke of Piccadilly. But I don't want us to dwell on those quotations. I'm saying it is those quotations that have brought us where we are. The good book or books tell us that man must not live by, the word of God alone, right? Is that how they put it?
No, man must not live by bread alone.
By bread
but
alone.
also by the word of
God.
God.
Also by the word of God.
Abiding.
So in the same way, that's what I'm saying. You don't live by the word
inverse.
of God alone. By inverse, you don't live by the word of God alone. You understand? So, especially when you don't mean it, you just use it because it is convenient. So I'm saying that, look, if they had listened, we would not be where we are. Okay. But unfortunately, we are here today. And people are still enduring a lot as a result of their incompetence, their cluelessness, and their recklessness. The least they can do.
How should we do
to
these
show
engagements?
Magnanimity in these engagements, in these conversations, and not to be telling us that, hey, we now have IMF package. When you told us that you will not even go to the IMF, when we told you should go because if you didn't at the time, you were going to go in an ambulance, you finally take us to the IMF in an ambulance, and then you have the audacity to say to us. I mean, what logic is that? Then you have the finance minister also tell us this is record time. The way people thought we'll not even get a deal now. I mean, you are last. I mean, you are worst in the world. So calm down. Recognize the endurance that the nation is making to get us out of the ditch that you have put us in. When we get out of that ditch, we will now know who to hold responsible. And we will. Because that thievery will not go unpunished.
Okay. Well, we have to go for a break. When we come back, we'll be discussing the subject of labor. Because labor had, on the table, said they wanted 60% increment in wages. And after over a week, 2 of discussions, they were only able to come to a percentage less decrease of 58%. What are the implications? Is it that labor is not empathizing with government, or it's the other way around, or they're just reading the signs and thinking that it's not going to be possible? Prince Henry from Kofodia says, so the same Ken Oferiatta who said Ghana will not go to the IMF is now taking us to the IMF. Let's be sincere and tell him that he can't be trusted. And this one is coming from Kojo Boatin, who says, today, Honorable Titus Glover is trying to be a citizen, not a spectator on your show. Kudos to him. Kudos to you, sir.
Thank you.
And then we have Ghanaians have started jubilating, forgetting that the dollar was 4.2, 4.5 when the managers of the economy took over the reins of management in 2017. And this one from Mozato says, I have just received this from GCB. Recent developments in the economy have led us to increase our interest rates, increasing from 14.18 in March 2022 to 27.44 in October 2022. Now, these increments effective will take place from 1st November 2022 in line with the terms of your facility. Your monthly payment will now be 1,040 Ghana cedis. So this facility it took from GCB has now increased by way of the rates. It's not compounding. So you got to find that people are really reeling from these difficulties. Where we go to a break. And when we come back,
maybe before
we'll
the
have
break,
more
if you permit me, I mean, I just got this text because I didn't want to spend time on it because, we have discussed the 1D1F and the talk about where they are and sometimes how they are not even correct. I mean, someone just sent a text and he's telling me that, look, that you mentioned the Nasia rice factory. Nasia rice factory is not part of the 1D1F, and the person has actually attached, the factories or the institutions under 1D1F, a list of it. Nasia is not part of it. It's somebody's own investment, and then the Savlugu one says it's not even operational, but I didn't even want us to discuss because we have discussed this severally, but that is the nature of my friends in the NPP. Once they take a position, facts confuse them,
Right.
their minds are made up and facts confuse them.
Titus Glover, he usually is magnanimous.
I know, but you see,
We're taking a break. Let's take a break. When we come, I will look at organized labor and the concerns that they have.
Advancing, the facts confuse them.
Our proposal, as I've been telling you, is in about 4 folds. One, our proposal says that base pay should not be less than the minimum wage. As we speak now, the base pay is lower than the minimum wage. So we're asking government to bring the base pay to the minimum wage level. That gives us about 33.3%. Then we are saying that there is an agreement that the base pay should be 10% higher than the minimum wage. When you do that also, it will bring the base pay a little bit higher than the minimum wage. When you add that percentage difference to the 33.3%, it gives you about 44.1%. There's already COLA in place. That is 15%. When you add that, then you're already at the 60%. Then we also have pay relativity of 1.7, which we are demanding 2%. So when you put all these demands together, you are up there. You know what I'm saying. But what we are trying to do is that we don't want to enter 2023 with the same old salary, because the agreement on the COLA is ending at the end of December. So we want to enter 2023 with a new base pay.
Mr. Titus Glover, how would you describe the demand of labor?
It's negotiations. So in negotiations, you go with what you want. And we have what we called the affordability or the ability to pay by the employer. When I came earlier, you were saying that labor has reduced their 60% demand to 58. Very marginal. And I don't know where government is as of now. Where government was.
13%.
13%. So clearly the way things are going, if they are not careful, it will land at a deadlock.
What are the implications?
Because the implication is that they have to refer it to a referee, which is a labor commission for a determination to be made. When I heard the Deputy Secretary General talking, he's saying that they can't go into 2023 with the old salary. In negotiations, depending on the parties, the level of the negotiation, the way it travels. So, as of now, he cannot say that they can't go in 2023 with the old salary, so long as the
he cannot say that. He's not entitled to
what
that.
I'm saying that the finality has not come. So you are still traveling to 2023. You are still negotiating. So I think that where they've reached now, there's very little that government can do, because if you are demanding 60%, government is also looking at its books, looking at the funding that is coming in. 70% of domestic revenue is being used to service debts. 70%. In this budget, they want to look at how they can raise more revenue. Raise more revenue. So if 70% is going into debt servicing, you've not talked about public sector compensation. You've not talked about goods and services, let alone capital expenditure. So clearly, government hands are tight. And a lot of people in this country who are unwilling to pay taxes. People are evading taxes here and there. It is the onus on GRA to make sure that they make people to pay these taxes. So when you have enough, we pay what we are supposed to pay. What is left is what we are supposed to be paying to what the workers as their compensations. So clearly, I can see the challenge ahead, because if government cannot afford that 58%, and for the way things are going, I'm not sure government can afford the 58%.
So we'll go to an arbiter.
So there need to be an arbiter at the Labour Commission so that they can make.
Because we can have strikes all over.
Well, that is a weapon of the last resort of Labour, and when you go to strike, to how long? Because then still the rules say that when you go on strike, you don't need to be paid, and the employer also have a right to lock you out. We don't want the situation to get there, but I think that the situation we find ourselves in, every negotiation, nobody wins and nobody loses. It's a win-win situation. You come down a bit, I come down a bit, I go up a bit, so we'll find a common ground that we can all settle on.
This is on a day when we're announcing a staff level agreement with the IMF. So there seems to be a loss of trust for government. And that it doesn't look good.
Yes, it doesn't. And you can't blame Labour for seeming unreasonable. The demand for 60% may appear unreasonable on the face value to any, government. But the reality is that I believe it is on the low side. That's the reality. And so government, or those negotiating on behalf of government, first of all need to appreciate the fact that Labour and its members have suffered tremendous loss of income as a result of the state in which our economy has been plunged into. The nature of our economy has led to Labour and its members losing a lot of value on the income that they earn for the, work that they do. So, for example, if you were receiving, say, 1,500 or 2,000 Ghana cedis at the end of the month, at the beginning of this year, your 1,500 or so could have bought you, let's say,
a mini fridge?
No, not even a mini fridge. Cement. Let's use cement as the basic.
At 25, 35 Ghana cedis.
At 25, 35 Ghana cedis, your 2,000 Ghana cedis could buy you some appreciable number of bags of cement. Today, that same 1,500 cannot even get you half the number you could have gotten at the beginning of the year.
At all. It gives you only 1/3.
So it tells
only
you
15 bucks.
it tells you how much the value of the income people have been getting for the work that they do, have reduced. And so the 60% demand, unreasonable as it may seem, is realistic to a very large extent, given the nature of the economy within which we are operating today. And so people negotiating on behalf of government need to first of all recognize that and make Labour and those negotiating on their behalf feel that they understand before you can plead for reductions and what have you. But if you are going to go strictly by market demand and market rates, I think 60% is not unreasonable. But we have talked of burden sharing, and
You don't see it on the part of government?
I can see that many Ghanaians from all walks of life, for some strange reason, are willing to carry the burdens of even, the clueless government.
Why do you think that is so?
Because you see, if at this time you still have a government that is bent on allocating 80 million Ghana cedis to the construction of a cathedral that was promised to God as a personal promise by the president, it flies in the face of appeals to people to carry more burdens.
How would you describe that expenditure?
Reckless, insensitive. That's all. It is, I think my friend Titus Glover will agree that if God had a say in this matter, he would have told the people allocating these funds to the construction of his house to feed the poor and make it possible for the average worker to be able to educate his child or her child. That is more in service of God than the thievery that is happening in the name of that construction of that cathedral. So these things, when they are part of the conversation,
Gets Labour annoyed.
provoke people and make them question why they should carry more burden, even if it is required for us to come out of this. And another interesting thing that I find, Roland, is the increase in compensation budget. If you look at the 2023 budget statement, government has indicated that there will be freeze on unemployment into the public sector. There will be cuts in allowances and what have you. Yet the compensation budget in the 2023, the allocation for compensation in the 2023 budget has increased by about 80%. In fact, when we're considering the budget estimates for, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, an item, the compensation item and the Lands Commission, or the ministry, raised some questions because it had increased by over 10 million Ghana cedis when the staff, we are told, is supposed to be increased by just 185. 185 people, according to them, may be employed or replaced. Because if there's a freeze, you are assuming that they will be replaced. But yet you have the compensation budget increasing by over 10 million Ghana cedis.
Or something need to feel.
Yes, so we are demanding the explanations of all of this. So if Labour also sees this compensation budget that has increased by about 80%, and they are demanding 60%.
It gets them annoyed.
And they are demanding 60%. They want a share of that increase.
All right, we have to end the discussion this morning.
I've heard that someone has also sent me a picture from the Tamana factory with a picture of the president visiting the place, insisting that it is a support of one day, one ever government.
Which one?
So what I'm saying,
Which one? Nasia project?
The Nasia project, yes. So from here, I will try and liaise with the Ministry of Trade because between Suhini and myself, somebody has sent me a video. So we need to establish.
There've been a recent
I'm seeing a
video.
picture.
A recent video. They've gone there and.
I'm saying that if you look at the list, and if you look at the list,
the concept of the one is a private sector project.
We are understand.
Supported by government.
But what I'm telling you, even check the
That's
list.
the president.
We have to end the discussions.
I've sent you the list.
That would need to look at it.
I've sent you the list.
Daniel,
I'll go through it.
Can I end the discussion?
You end. But the point is that, Suhini, it is not entirely true that we have mismanaged. It is not entirely true.
What are the rating agencies saying?
Because there's a genius factors must also be looked at.
What is that? What is
there's a genius factors must also be looked at. It's not entirely true.
Which one?
Are we different from what is happening globally?
No, we're not starting another argument.
So please, it's not entirely true that we have mismanaged.
Daniel Ni Kwate Titus Glover, former member of parliament for Tema East, former deputy minister for transport. And then also Al-Hassan Suhuyini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, also in the studio. Today is your birthday. Ibrahim Mutala Muhammad. Ibrahim Mutala Muhammad, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Today your birthday, you're regular on the show. Happy birthday to you. Yes. And then he sent me this. He says, he says, remind Suhuyini that in the Piccadilly movie, the man also advised his son to always wear white. Remind Honorable Suhuyini that in the Piccadilly movie, the man also advised his son to always wear white.
And always play gospel music and speak softly.
Mutala Muhammad. Happy birthday to you. Well, we're taking a break. When we come back, we do have more right here on the show. Remember, we have some sports discussions and the center stage today. We have that impending match. It is Morocco representing the Arab world, and then also Africa playing against their former colonial masters, France. We'll discuss all that right here on the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.